Welcome to the Check with Joseki Tech. I'm Adam Steidley, the president of Joseki Tech. This week we're joined by Dan, our vice president of engineering, and Campbell, who was our intern this summer.
Yeah, I'm Dan. I'm the vice president of Joseki Technologies, and here to learn what Campbell did on her interesting internship. She was keeping me up to speed the first couple of weeks she was in, and then she disappeared into a hole. So I'm very interested to see what she did for her internship.
Well, hi, I'm Campbell. I am a current student at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, where I'm studying mathematics with a focus in operations research. And I had the honor of being an intern at Joseki Tech this summer. And yeah, I'm here to speak about it.
Thanks, Campbell. And we thought it would be good for you to be working on the internship with us. One of the things that we did was we placed you with one of our major customers, because while we've got certainly the skills to be working on these things and helping to mentor you and give you some exposure to this stuff, we don't have our own data set. So for all the kind of fun that we're going to need to do, we need a data set, we need a customer that's going to do some real applications in business. So I know your final project that you worked on was kind of the big culmination of the summer. Can you talk about what the goal was of that project?
Of course, yeah. So we were approached by our client's sales team where they had the issue that their sales reps were spending a little too much time prepping for calls, gathering information about the customer's previous history with the company and whatnot. And also some of the newer account managers with this company were having issues maintaining and continuing a conversation. They just didn't have the language to have it flow as naturally. So as a solution, I created an AI-powered calling script generator that took in a specific customer's data and took in their purchasing histories and would produce a calling script based on that. These customers were also classified into different categories based on their purchasing history, such as declining or growing, to help further tailor the script to their purchasing patterns. And so we had that be classified through a process RFM, which is recency frequency monetary, which is essentially just a way to classify a customer based on the recency of their purchases, how frequently are they purchasing with us, and how much money are they spending with us. And overall, I got it to create multiple different versions of scripts that would change the language used, and it would alter what is being spoken about. And then ultimately, it would all relate back to producing a sale and getting the sales rep to be able to have the language to come in and speak to a customer in a amazing and hopefully sales inspiring way.
That's really great. And how long was this project start to finish?
It lasted about a month and a half. We started kind of mid-July and it came right up to the end of my internship in August.
That's really cool. So that sounds like a pretty short span to get a result. And has it gone into the market yet? Are they using it in production now, or is that still rolling out?
Not quite yet. We are hoping to see that it will be available in the dashboard that the representatives are using to prep for their calls. So each individual customer should have a little, box that they can pull up and see the script so that they would be able to make a call more efficiently and quickly.
Excellent. It'd be super interesting if we can get a follow-up with the customer on how much lift we were seeing from this. Now, Dan asks an insightful question.
Oh, that sounds really good. How does it all work? Where's the magic?
The magic is in artificial intelligence. I got to utilize OpenAI's API option within a Python script, and I was able to access the GPT-4o model to generate the script because within some testing, we determined that GPT-4o was the best model for the text generation.
What test did you do to land on 4o?
I was basically running the script a bunch of times, and I was personally going in and seeing, what kind of language it was using and how well it was producing what I thought would be a good, version of a script. And through that, I tested multiple different kinds of models to optimize which one would be the best for the specific project. And we landed on GPT-4o, as well as it's an easy model to access and use.
That's an interesting progression there, because I believe you started life in a LLM and Snowflake.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah,
What happened? What transpired to get you from Snowflake to, I assume, ChatGPT 3.5 maybe for a couple heartbeats, and then 4? Did you talk me through that?
You nailed the progression, yes. So when I initially started off with a llama model that was in Snowflake, I was going through it, I was sending through prompts and whatnot, and I was getting it to produce responses and whatnot. And every time it came back, it was always something that was almost up to par, but it was never quite using the right language, or it wasn't organizing it properly. And maybe that was, prompt error on my part, but I think after a while we determined that it was just the model that wasn't working out for us. So we kind of jumped to GPT-4o because my mentor was super familiar with that. And so I continued on with that route, and I discovered that it was much more, efficient and better for the project I was working on.
Yeah, same thing happens in our internal AI projects that we're doing. We start out with ChatGPT 3.5, and then it went to Turbo. Now 4.0 seems the way to go. They made it cheaper and faster, so
yes.
Progression is just there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and were the counts that you're using in this project small enough that there wasn't really a cost consideration? I mean, how many records did you wind up processing?
Yeah, I ended up processing. This was for my testing purposes, I was doing one at a time where, I would just send in a rewards number and it would produce, whatever script for the customer. In that, the processing time for it was initially not so good. It was about roughly a minute to produce a specific script, which,
per script?
Per script, yeah. So I had to go back in and I did some fiddling with the token usage. So that's one way you can limit AI and how it's going to produce, is limiting the tokens it's allowed to use. So I did, through multiple rounds of testing, I kind of found the threshold between how low I can limit the tokens and how that would compromise how the script would come out. So through multiple rounds of testing, I was able to find a good limit where I was happy with the response time, which went down to about 30 seconds-ish per script, and also, on the flip side, maintain the integrity of how the script was produced.
And how many scripts are you producing sort of in a nightly batch? Is it hundreds or thousands?
It would be hundreds, yeah. The goal would be that, on a weekly or daily basis, X amount of scripts would be created for the sales representatives so that they can meet their quota for calling whoever they need to call, because they needed to call the customers at least once every 60 days. So the hope was that we would be able to kind of time when the customer would need to be called to meet the quota of being called at least once every 60 days.
So your counts aren't crazy high because there's, let's say if there's 100 sales reps, they can only make maybe 30 calls a day. Sounds like a lot. So you don't have a huge count you need to do daily.
Yep.
Because I know with the work that we've done, a lot of times we want to go back to 3.5 if we need to do thousands and thousands in a run, and we don't want to wait overnight for it. Then it's going to be a question of what's the fastest. And then also we start to run into sort of dollars and cents questions.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We want to go to the cheaper model to save money.
Yes, understood. Yeah, and that was also a consideration in the project I was doing, but ultimately we determined that the quality of how the script came out took precedent over the generation time. I still tried to optimize it as best as I possibly could because that's always an important thing to do. But the goal wasn't exactly to be efficient, like fast in that regard. The generation
quality is better.
Yes.
Yeah, you don't necessarily have to be fast because your whole business process is batch oriented.
Yes, correct.
But it is interesting the orders of magnitude faster you can make it. The prompt engineering, trick number one, tell it or constrain how many tokens it's going to generate. It's not so much about what it's going in, it's what it has to produce. And we saw very similar things where it was taking easily a minute to do a prompt generation or to generate a result. And then just by limiting the output down, it came under 30 seconds.
And Dan, didn't we get better results with limiting the tokens with hallucinations? You get more hallucinations with more tokens?
Yeah, we gave it less noise. And there's also temperature that you can play with that will really help with the hallucinations.
And what does the temperature do exactly?
I have no idea. I just said that.
Temperature affects
I forget. Temperature is how likely it is to adhere to the data point you gave it, I guess.
I think
Campbell, let me introduce you. So Campbell, how does adjusting the temperature affect the model? results?
So temperature is related to the vector embeddings that AI uses to produce language. It's all based on math. Every word, every letter is, matched, and it's given a score on how likely it is to be the next letter or the next word. So temperature adjusts the threshold of where it will kind of rope in other scores and whatnot. So it would alter and would make it hallucinate more, be more creative, rather than
You're hired. You're hired. You just explained that better than the OpenAI documentation.
Yes.
Okay, so a higher temperature is going to give us more randomness, let's say, because it'll do things that are less likely to be the next word. So it might just say zebra all of a sudden because it's a crazy high temperature where that wouldn't otherwise make sense. Okay, that's cool. So, so you did some playing with the onesie twosies to get a model you liked and get some basic prompts you like. Now, just from the mechanics of this, so you're sitting on top of Snowflake, you're writing things in Python. What are the different, where does your script actually run in the infrastructure?
So in my local, and as an option for just demoing it to other people, I had a quick Streamlit app be wrote so that, you could quickly see what what it's producing. So I could just pull up a tab on my screen and have it show the script.
Streamlight's your IDE?
Streamlit.
Streamlit.
Yes, it's
essentially Python calling out to using a Python library to call OpenAI.
Yes. Yeah. So I would be able to pull that up on a tab and then show someone, or you could throw it into a server and have it, someone quickly type in a number and they would be able to access the script.
Okay, so you did the testing, you got the script ready, running locally, you got some happy results, and from when we had talked about this a little bit before, essentially you're pulling all the data you need about the customer directly from Snowflake, and then you're pushing your responses back to Snowflake, right?
Yes, correct. So that they could then be accessed into the customer's dashboard when a sales rep goes to see what customer they're calling.
So in AI speak, that looks like a bit of RBAC and one-shot completion.
Yes, correct.
So what were you doing that was an RBAC in there?
No, that's just the type of it where I was doing one-shot calling for producing the script. So I would give it.
Let's back up a step to my question.
It was the RFM, right? The recency, frequency, and monetary. So look up the data and plug it in.
Yeah. So when you say RBAC and when you say RFM, for those of us that aren't writing this code every day like you and Dan, what does some of that mean?
I'm sorry, it's not RBAC. It's let me look it up. It's RAD or
yes, RAG. Retrieval augmented generation.
Yeah. Let's do that. Let's make sure we should say retrieval augmented generation, because RAG is the terminology around how you're plugging that data in. You went and looked that up. You retrieved it and then you augmented it into the prompt.
Yes.
That's what that is. That's RAG.
Yep.
And then it's a one shot because there was no conversation. And you didn't give it any samples, say, based on these 3 examples, generate, and then ask the question, right? So it was just go.
Yes. Yeah, it was just go. And as Dan explained, I was giving the model the information about the customer, which was, pulled through a SQL query into my script. And then it was then producing the script based on that customer's information.
The idea of this, I guess, is you pull the customer info. So like we said, you're pulling RFM stuff. Did you pull specific products they were buying or categories of products they were buying?
Yes, yeah. So part of the data I was pulling was obviously what products they were buying, what categories those products were bought in, because part of the sales goals as the people I was connecting with in the sales team, they like to expand where the customers are buying from. So they don't care as much, if this customer is only buying in this specific category, they're okay with that because they know that they're going to go back to that category. But their goal is to have them branch out, have them sell them different kinds of things. So I was able to provide them, the top and bottom departments they were buying from, what kind, how much money they were spending in each department, so that would give them insight into how they can expand that customer's specific purchasing.
And was there anything as you were playing with the prompts that you found very, I guess, interesting or surprising where adding this to the prompt gave you a much better result?
Yes. So Dan kind of briefly mentioned before, telling the AI, the LLM, to take its time and think about what it's about to respond, it actually does help how the responses will be produced. I don't exactly know how that works myself, but it's just one method I use to increase the accuracy of what I'm being given by the AI. And I did a lot of iterations of prompts. That was one of the biggest, time consuming things of this project, was having to go back and review my prompt and get it to do something else to see if that would work, or, how can I change my language so that it's dead on every single time. And that was a big challenge, but also very, it was very rewarding when I got the right words so that it would always produce what I wanted it to. And yeah, that's just one of the many things I noticed about AI.
That's been another well understood approach, is tell it to take its time. If you're giving it a set of instructions or procedure, make sure it follows them and doesn't skip any.
Yes.
It's very interesting how I have to tell the computer to do that. And it gives me better results when I do. Computer, take your time.
Yeah. And also saying don't hallucinate oddly helps as well.
No, I have not tried that.
Yeah. Just base everything you do in fact and on the information I give you. It helps. Yeah.
I have taken the output and said, here, can you make this better?
Mm-hmm.
So if you had another 4 to 6 weeks on this project, what were some of the next things you'd like to play with and try to do with it?
I think we were talking about an idea of changing the script based on how well we know the customer, because the data was all saved about how long have we been in communication with this customer, how loyal are they to us. That was another version of the script they would like to see in the future, was, how can I have an introductory conversation with the customer versus a customer I've known for a long time or long term. And that was something I would be super interested in doing.
So if memory serves there, you started out with a generic script and then abandoned that approach and went to a more dynamic script. Can you talk to that a little bit about what happened, why you changed direction?
Yeah, so I initially was given a template as just a basis for myself to see how a sales rep would make a very generic average call. So initially I started off with the prompt involving some kind of template for the script. And as I was iterating through it and, trying to expand the different versions of the scripts and whatnot based on how the customer is purchasing, I noticed that the template was kind of holding me back in the regard that it would stick too closely to it, where it wasn't giving me the right language or the right ideas anymore if it was a certain kind of customer. So I moved away from that and I allowed the LLM to have the opportunity to produce based on what information I gave it, produce whatever information or whatever script it thought was necessary. I did give it the context of, hey, you're creating a calling script for a customer that a sales rep would, potentially use. So it was able to take that, context and background, and then on top of the information I gave it, produce something that was more tailored to the specific, kind of situation we're working in.
Cool. So Dan, I know we've been playing a little bit with training the models. Do you think there's a decent opportunity to take some of these results and use a feedback loop of what the customer actually buys after one of these calls to tune what are the good scripts and what are the bad scripts?
Absolutely, yeah. And I feel like I know that the sales team that were you talking to Dan?
I'm good with it. Go for it. Answer the question. Leave me the thinking.
Well,
I don't know. The training and tuning, we're still wrapping our heads around. Tuning's good when you want to change the sentiment. You want to change the language a little bit. You want to make it adhere to a format. But if you want it to learn more about the subject matter, that really needs to be baked into the model itself. So you're no longer talking about ChatGPT-4. You're talking about making your own LLM to get that information built into it. You don't add information to tuning.
I guess when I'm talking tuning, then an exercise we could go through is looking at the scripts to try to tune it to use more the jargon that the salespeople are using to talk about the different categories and classes in their speak, as opposed to a more generic speak. So I guess you could tune that into your own model so it sounds a little bit more like your sales reps.
Well, if you like tuning, if you wanted to pick certain words, like you love the word bespoke, right? And you like to see that come up all the time, then that's a good usage of fine tuning, because you can take those outputs, you can change them up, you can send it back in the model, you'll produce a private model for you and switch over to it, and you'll see your generations now using bespoke more often.
Cool. So Campbell, what's the year look like for you going into your next classes, and what do you think you will take from this experience into your coursework?
I really enjoyed being able to play around with AI and having the chance to apply it to a real world situation, and be able to help out another team and see them be very happy with the results and whatnot. And it was very rewarding for myself. So going forward, I do take a lot of computer science classes, and particularly I'm going to be going into a research class where I'm going to be have free reign on whatever kind of research I want to do in data. So I'm very excited to take those skills of AI and working with super large data sets and whatnot and apply that to my new class. So I'm super excited for that coming up.
Excellent. Well, we've had lots of really strong feedback from the client about the work you did. We're really happy for the success that you've had, and we're sure you'll have lots more in the future. So thanks everyone for joining on the call today.